Well, John, Alice, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's a pleasure to have you both on the programme. So what did you make of what Tom Daley had to say today, John?
I thought it was lovely. I mean, I think a perfect announcement in the perfect format for an age group that has been searching, I think, for a really positive role model. And he provided that in a very authentic way, because there's nothing manufactured feeling about the process. And let's face it, YouTube is one of those ways that young people talk to each other, communicate complex ideas, and he did it, I thought, eloquently.
Alice, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought he did it beautifully, and I think what's so lovely is he clearly is so happy, and it's such a positive message that he's putting out. There's no apology, there's no, why should there be? He's happy and he's spreading that happiness, and I'm thrilled for him.
But brave of him as well. I mean, he's obviously a very popular man. He's very famous in his own right, and, you know, broadcasting on YouTube, it's not for the faint-hearted, is it, John?
I think it is bold, for sure. I'm a bit cautious when, you know, in a day and age where we flick on the news and people are sacrificing themselves for our safety. We have to be careful how we use the word brave, but it certainly is important. It can be bold and profound without too much weight. And I think he's going to, we cannot underestimate the impact this is going to have on young people. There are going to be young people who see this and say, you said this to the universe, but these are the exact words I just want to be able to say to my mum.
And I suppose, and which would be fantastic, wouldn't it? And I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute in terms of being a role model. But I suppose, Alice, it gave him a huge amount of control, because he talked about being misquoted before, and he could talk directly to his fans, couldn't he?
Yes, I mean, I'm hoping that he timed this himself. Of course, we never know what the press are doing in the background. I would hope that he genuinely has timed this himself, and that he's had the time to tell his family first, which is really important, and then he can make the statement, rather than the press hounding him. Believe you me, the press will have been hounding him for years, ever since he was in the public eye. And when people say, oh, why does he need to talk about it? He needs to talk about it because if he wants to go for a meal in a restaurant with his boyfriend, there will be cameramen outside waiting for him, paparazzi waiting for him, hounding him every step that he takes. And if he wants to lead a free life, he had to do this, and I really hope he genuinely has done it in his own time. It sounds like he has, and I hope that's true.
And he can get on with being a sports star, which is what it's all about.
Absolutely.
And John, society hopefully is thankfully far more open about sexuality these days, but in the world of sport, it's still very challenging, isn't it? Why is that, do you think?
There are still a number of Dickensian characters in sport. Men, and it is mostly men, older men, who would not be appropriate for almost any other context. Men who you would not allow to teach your children French or maths. Men who you would not allow to, or at least hope would not be running our major companies. And instead they're in this environment where they're allowed to be very closed about the people who are allowed in this club. And so it's a shame, really. But this is the good part of this. This is one part of a multi-dimensional attack on bias. Role models, getting them out there, people who can show that it's normal, acceptable, beautiful, in the case of this video, to be who you are. And then other people have to kind of move in the right direction to help solidify
And you know what?
that.
It'll make him a better diver.
For sure.
Because if you've got that monkey on your back, that you're worried all the time, there's that piece of you that's having to live. It takes a lot of energy to live a secret life. And he doesn't have to live a secret life, and that will improve everything for him and for everyone around him.
Yeah, and that is exactly right. It is not a metaphor. There is actual amounts of energy that are required to hold on to a secret, to remember to use gender-neutral pronouns every single time you're interviewed. Takes energy, and that's energy that is not available for the perfect dive.
Let's have a little bit more of what he had to say this morning in terms of why he decided to do this and now.
Well, my life's been a bit of a roller coaster, to say the least, over the last couple of years. I mean, losing my dad to cancer in 2011 was one of the hardest things I've ever had to deal with in my life. And then winning an Olympic medal last year in 2012 in front of a home crowd, finishing my A-levels this year. I mean, it's been hectic. In an ideal world, I wouldn't be doing this video because it shouldn't matter. But recently, I was misquoted in an interview, and it made me feel really angry and frustrated, and, you know, like emotions that I've never felt before.
Do you think life will be easier for him now? Because he's been through so much, hasn't he, in the last 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, easier, no. Simpler, Yes, definitely. And there is a really important difference. He's still got plenty of challenges ahead. He's going to be now automatically thrust into this position of being an advocate and a role model and an outspoken stalwart for many, many human rights issues. But simpler in that he's streamlined a way out of his life any part of deceit or hiding or anything like that. And that energy that Alice talked about, that he doesn't have to use anymore to kind of push things to the side.
And you mentioned he'd be a great role model. Do you think that he will help? Because there must be many, many sportsmen and women who are competing, who are hiding their sexuality.
Yeah, and I think what's wonderful is he's so young. You know, he's 19. And that's fantastically young. And gosh, I think a lot of footballers and people could take a leaf out of his book. But to do it at that age and to show young people, because it's interesting, if you look on social media, there is still some very bad attitudes amongst the very young and in schools. And I think he will help that. I hope that his coming out will help that a lot.
Because he said himself, we just heard that he would rather not, in an ideal world, not be making this video. So will there be a day when that's right, when you have professional footballers, rugby players, all sportsmen and women right across the board who can be open about their sexuality and it's no big deal?
Yes, but we have to proactively contribute to that happening. We can't just
when will that happen,
imagine it'll be a question of time, because it's not. Because right now, if you ask the teachers' unions, a significant proportion of teachers who are gay and lesbian do not come out in their workplace. In businesses, we know a significant portion don't. We have a problem across society. Sport happens to be a particularly ugly example too often when it comes to bias. But across the board, we have issues. It's just in other areas we're dealing with more proactively, and sport needs to take the baton.
What do you think, Alice?
No, I absolutely agree with John. I mean, I think there are areas where it is easier to come out, and I think, you know, there are certain occupations where it's easier, but, you know, there are a lot of hidden areas too. And we have to take account of that. And John and I were talking earlier, and as John was saying, you know, in some areas of society, it's much, much easier for people to come out, and people who are privileged or, you know, have wealth or have education or, you know, have liberal-minded families, and it's much, much easier. And Tom just sets an example to help those who maybe don't come from a similar background and aren't supported by their parents and their friends.